Hey guys, what is going on? It is Coach Will with Big Little Gyms, and today I'm going to talk about leveraging other people's time. So what I'm talking about here is, in your business, there are a series of roles and jobs and tasks that need to be getting done every day. They're unavoidable. They're things that need to happen in order for the business to operate. There's also a series of tasks and roles and things that need to be getting done in regards to growing your business and making the business bigger and making it so you can actually make a profit. And those things need to get done too. And we often do as gym owners and as business owners and entrepreneurs is we tend to really focus on these small tasks that need to get done every day, and we get stuck working in the business. And what ends up happening is we don't end up making the time or finding the resources to get the things done to work on the business, right? So in today's video, I want to tell you about how leveraging other people's time works, because one of the best videos I've done recently, one of the videos that's performed the best that I've had gym owners ask me to talk more about, was on leverage. And that's what we're talking about here, is leverage. And the video I did before that you could check out, that everybody seems to be reporting back to me as a really, really good, useful video, was the video on other people's money. And I think it was maybe a couple weeks ago I did a video about other people's money. And just to recap that video was talking about how you borrow money at a certain interest rate, and you engineer in making a margin between that interest rate you're borrowing at and the rate of return. So an example of that would be, if I'm borrowing, say, $40,000 at a rate of 1% per year. And the reason why I use that number is because that's amount of money that the PPP program that they have here in the States, the government bailout program for small businesses, for payroll protection program, that was coming up a lot. And a lot of gym owners are asking, like, hey, I can borrow up to 40% with the PPP program. I don't necessarily need the money, I can get by, but what should I borrow this money? And when I looked at the numbers of what the PPP loan allowed you to do, it seems like a very, very good opportunity to use other people's money. And this is what happens during recessions. This is what happens during recessed economies like this, is opportunities present themselves for you to take advantage of. The problem is it's hard to identify them. A lot of people see the PPP loan and they're like, oh, I don't want to take on debt right now. I don't want to take money I don't need, blah, blah, blah. They have all these reasons for not doing it, right? And all these reasons for shunning people who do it, when in reality, it's a bad business decision, no matter who you are, to decline borrowing money at that rate if you know for a fact you can make a margin on it. And what I mean by making a margin on it is if you can borrow money, say you can borrow money on the PPP loan at, say, $40,000 at a rate of 1%, and you have a certain amount of time to pay it back. For every year that you're paying 1% interest rate, that means you're only paying, $400 to borrow $40,000. Now, if you could sit down with a pen and paper and write down how you could take and invest that money into your gym in a way that you can get back a return of 10% per year, then now you're making 9% margin without having spent a single dime, because you borrowed the money from someone else. You used someone else's money to make that 9%. So you pretty much made pure profit. So that's what leverage is, right? And that's what really commonplace, and it's used quite often, and where the smartest, most successful people are in business are using it a lot, is in something like real estate, right? With real estate, when you go to buy properties, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most people, even good investors, don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquid money. They usually have their money tied up in assets and things that are making them money. So they don't just have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting around to spend on properties. So what they do is they have relationships with banks and lenders where they can borrow money at very, very good rates. And they already know what they can make on a property, right? They already know that if I buy this house and fix it up, I'm going to make 30% in the next year. So they go out and they purposely seek out people who will lend them money at a rate of 10% or 5% or even lower at 3%. And they already know their margin before they even take out the money, right? And you see it used quite often in real estate, because you can kind of more or less get an idea from the market of what something's going to sell for once you fix it up, right? Now, people think that doesn't apply to something like our gyms, when it absolutely 100% does. There's a lot of things that we as gym owners ignore, principles of business, laws of nature, that are used in most other walks of business that we don't use here in gyms, because we run such a small operation. We sometimes don't really think that these things can apply to our businesses, when in reality they can. They 100% can. So, the idea of this video here today is talking about leveraging time, because leveraging other people's money is an excellent thing to do, right? Like money, we trade our time to get money. So if we can leverage money, we get some time back, because we're borrowing the money instead of going and working for it, right? As long as I can do the work after I get it to get a return and pay that money back and keep the proceeds, then I win. And this is how you grow the snowball, right? Like Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, his autobiography is called The Snowball. And this is because this is what he did. He's very good at merging and acquiring businesses and buying up shares of companies where he knows he can enhance the value over and above the cost of what he bought it for. So he'll buy up shares of a company, and sometimes not even with his own money, with other money that he's borrowed, from his fund, because he runs Berkshire Hathaway, which is a fund of people that are funding the account. He takes their money, invests in a business, fixes the business, and then either sells or keeps the business and reaps the profits and the margins that over above what he bought it for, right? So that's what you're doing with your own gym, right? And you need to look at your business the same way, and just because you've been the one that's owned it doesn't mean it's the same person after you take on that debt. The idea should be that afterwards you're now going to treat this like an investment. You're now going to look at where has there been money left on the table here that I can pick up. And with most gyms that I've worked with, it is that way. Now, with money, that's probably the second most important thing you should be leveraging is other people's money. The first most important thing is other people's time, right? Because as I just said, the one thing we spend a lot of time doing to earn money is spending our time, right? And time is the one thing we don't get back. We all have a finite amount of time. So we all are born into this world, whether it's fate or not, whatever, like we all know at some point we realize, oh, we're going to die. And I know it's a very morbid thing and kind of an existential thing, so hopefully that doesn't create a crisis for anybody, and I apologize if it does, but it's a fact of life that all living things are born and they die, right? So knowing that this is going to happen someday, we only get so much time, and we need to use that time to best affect the people around us, to best give back, to best be around the people that we love the most, to enhance other people's lives. We need to conserve as much time as possible, right? So the idea is, depending on what phase of life you're in, your time might be more valuable. Because I remember, I'm 37 now and I have 2 kids and a wife, and I have friendships, lifelong friendships. And at this phase of life, I'm starting to realize oh wow, this is for my 3-year-old daughter, this is very important years. I want to be around her as much as possible. My time, it would take me, thousands of dollars an hour to trade my time that I spend with my daughter, as little of it as I get, because I work, what's left of it, I would not trade for thousands of dollars an hour. So the $1,000 an hour work still needs to get done. Someone else has to do it. So I need to find someone who can do it. I need to leverage their time. Now, it was different when I was 20. When I was 20, I did not realize the value of my time. Most 20-year-olds do not. They slack off, they waste a lot of time, or they just don't realize their value, or they haven't yet realized what they're good at and know how to value themselves. So that's something that's kind of built into the way that we age, is that there's always people younger than us in other phases of life where they value their time at less, right? So it's the same thing as borrowing people's money and making a margin, is you can borrow people's time and make a margin, right? If your goal in your business, if you know what you need to be doing to make $100,000 this year, is doing the $100 or $1,000 an hour work within your business, then you need to remove yourself from doing the $20 an hour work, right? It's not possible because you only have 24 hours in a day, right? We all have the same 24 hours, right? So if I have 24 hours in a day and I need to spend that time, 8 hours of it working, 8 hours of it sleeping, and the remaining 8 hours running errands, doing life, spending time with loved ones, touching base with friendships, probably using some of that time even to work overtime, because I can't remember the last time I only worked 8 hours. I'm pretty sure I worked 12 hours most days. And then also have time for hobbies and your own personal fitness and wellness. You gotta try to fit all that into 24 hours. And it's really not possible. So people wonder, how do people who are so successful, how are they so good at multiplying their effectiveness? How come they get so much done that it seems like they have 72 hours in a day? And the answer to that question is that they leverage other people's time, right? They find people that are in phases of life first thing is you find people that are very talented. People that are talented in this is where hiring and good scouting and good recruiting comes in. And this is why it's always important to be hiring and recruiting and scouting is, you don't only go and look for hires when you need them. You don't wait until you have to hire to need them. You're always having conversations with people that can be of value and be of use later, right? And that's where it served me best, right? So even when I wasn't hiring, I'd still have my hiring funnel up and I'd still be letting people know who inquired about jobs to go fill it out. That way, if say 2-3 months from now I needed somebody and we came into the money to be able to afford to hire them by their time for say $20 an hour, and I knew that that would keep me from having to coach classes so I could focus on the $100 an hour task, then I now make the margin, right? So if I can focus on the $100 an hour output tasks and pay someone else $20 an hour to keep my time free, I make 80 bucks an hour. That's my time. That's not how I'm leveraging other people's time, right? This is how the most successful people do it. And the most successful people are leveraging lots of people. Like if you imagine someone like, I don't know, most large corporations, like Jeff Bezos, for example, or Elon Musk, they leverage thousands of other people's time because the job that they do, people like visionaries like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, like the work that they do for their business, the visionary level stuff that they do is worth millions of dollars an hour. Like that's how much money those guys make for doing what they do. So they can't spend a lot of time on the floor packing boxes, right? They need to pay guys 20 bucks an hour to pack boxes. And then they have management above that they probably pay 100 grand a year. They can't even afford to do that work because they make more than that in 10 minutes. So they pay someone else to do the $100,000 hour work. And then they have upper management, right? They have upper management, the guys that he's paying millions of dollars a year, you know, because again, he makes that much in a day or a month. And so in order to keep making himself that much in a day or a month, he needs to keep paying the other guy to do the other tasks because he can't afford to step down a level, right? So this is the leveraging of other people's time, guys. And this is kind of it's a very tough thing for a lot of gym owners to wrap their heads around because for a lot of gym owners, probably 95% of the gym owners I talk to, this is really their only business venture they've ever been in, and it's a very peculiar one. It's not as easy to scale as some other ones. So, you know, what I found for me and how I had success with leveraging other people's time over the years was I had to often go out and leverage other people's time before I actually needed it, right? So it was often like if I knew I wanted to level up the position of my own business, if I'm trying to be the CEO, if I'm trying to work my way up there, and right now I'm still working on the ground floor of my own business, then I need to at least remove myself off the ground floor of the business a little bit. So knowing that's something I wanted to do in the next month or two, I would start hiring that person now. And the reason why is because there's a process to it. And also B, it was almost as if as soon as I got freed up from that time, as soon as I started paying that person 20 bucks an hour to coach 5 more classes a week for me, which was $100 a week, it was almost like as quickly as they got in place, I made that money up for the business and then some. So, and for me, the prime example of that would be back, say, 3-4 years ago when I first made the choice of my gym to step out of coaching altogether and cut my hours down to just a few classes a week because I still like to coach. Like I know that what I'm trying to say, guys, is like you don't have to remove yourself from coaching to go be like the marketer in your business. If you love coaching and that's why you do this, then you still coach. What you do though is you take out a piece of paper and you write out the exact ideal number of classes you would coach in a week to not be burnt out. Because we all love coaching, yeah, and I know a lot of coaches that are amazing coaches and love it, but I've also met a lot of amazing coaches that have sold their gym or gone out of business because they were overworked and underpaid and couldn't continue to do it. And it's tragic because it's a really, really high-skilled, high-value person that now can't provide his services because he let himself or herself get burnt out. So in order for you to serve, you gotta look at it like this. In order for you to serve other people the best, you have to actually serve them yourself a little less. And you have to put someone else in place who could serve them for you under your model and your way of doing things. And maybe they're not as good as you, but ideally they're better than you. And that's another thing I would say is, remember when earlier in this video, I was talking about how there's different phases of life, right? There are people, if you're a 37-year-old guy like me with a family and, you know, you kind of have life stuff going on, you know, then you can find a 23-year-old who's got an exercise science degree that hasn't been out in the workforce, that wants experience. They essentially they would work for free just to get in a gym and be doing something. And when we first decided to step out of those roles ourselves, that's the first people I looked for. I put together a hiring funnel, which is just like a marketing funnel, but I did it for hires, and I distributed it, and I told all my college students to let their friends that were in exercise science know. And we had some really, really good candidates. One of our first coaches is now the guy that actually owns my gym, and he was actually coached for me for a couple years, and he worked at a local university as a teacher, and he had an exercise science degree and every credential you can imagine. And because of the phase of life he was in, he wasn't quite yet ready to own his own gym. He wanted to learn the ropes, so he was okay with being paid $18 an hour to coach for me for 10 classes a week. And we built a great relationship. He learned a lot of things, I learned a lot of things, and it freed me up to do the high level work that I needed to do. So I was still coaching a little bit, but now I was spending an extra 10 hours a week selling in my gym and marketing in my gym. And I spent that extra 10 hours a week that he freed me up from to grow my gym. And then before too long, I could hire more guys like him. Eventually, I was able to hire full-time guys like him. Eventually, the gym got to a place where I was able to sell it to him and go on and focus on my next purpose, my next goal. So this is how you get where you're going, guys. You leverage other people's time in different phases of life. As you find someone who's very talented and very young, probably better than you, and don't be afraid of that. That's another thing a lot of gym owners struggle with, is they think they got to be the smartest guy in the room. No, it's like your people who work for you, like, need to be smarter than you. Like Elon Musk is not the greatest engineer in the world. Like, he's a brilliant mind, has amazing vision, but he's even said in his videos that, like, he employs hundreds of guys smarter than him at particular things. Him, from a business standpoint, he's probably the best guy, and that's why he needs to stay the visionary. He needs to stay on top. He can't afford to be tucked down in with the engineers. He needs to understand that stuff. He needs to be good at it. Like, he needs to understand the way batteries work and cars work and efficiency, and have, like, the ability to put these things together, but he doesn't need to be the best, right? And that's what Elon, for example, has done so well, is he's got engineers that are probably smart enough and good enough to run their own $1 million businesses working for him, right? And if you think for a second that Elon is worried about that guy putting out a business, you'd be wrong, because Elon doesn't care, because Elon doesn't make his money by being the smartest guy in the room. He makes his money by leveraging the smartest guys possible and putting them all under one roof, right? And then marking up the service that they're providing for him. That's how business works, guys. You're not just leveraging other people's money, you're leveraging other people's time. And this is a skill that you have to get good at as a gym owner in order to grow your business into something that's actually viable. And that's something I've been on a tear lately with, is like, give your business the respect that it's due as an actual business, right? Like, stop treating this thing like a hobby that pays you a little bit of money or probably doesn't pay you any money, and start treating it like a business. And when you were to go, if I were to tell you to go start a business and it wasn't a trade that you were so attached to, but maybe it was just something random, the first thing most people would do would go look up how to run a business, and they would start treating it like a business. It gets clouded now. We start talking about, oh, this is your hobby and your passion, something you love. You start running it differently. You start running it with your emotions and your attachments, instead of running it detached. Like, you need to run your business, you need to detach yourself from the situations and treat it like a business and act objectively. And you're going to have days where you're at ends with your own emotions. You're going to feel like, I don't really want to do that because it's going to upset some people. I don't really want to do that because it's going to make me feel like I'm not doing the right thing. But then you make those decisions, and then months later you start to see things really start to grow. You start to really see things come uncorked. You start to remove yourself as the bottleneck, and now all of a sudden you start to get it. You start to realize, like, oh wow, okay, cool. Like, I have to give my business the respect it's due. And kind of like the best way to put that, and the most motivating thing I could say, is that, like, in order for you to do the best for everybody else on the planet that you serve, like, you have to treat it like a business. You sometimes have to go against yourself. You know what I mean? It's kind of like one of the best things I've ever read, and I can't remember where I read it at, but like, it's essentially like me as a man, a married man, and I have a wife and kids. In order for me to be the best version of them for them to get the most out of me, for them to leverage me the most as possible, because that's what they're doing, is they're leveraging me as the earner in the home, that I need to make my number one focus my purpose and my work. And you would think, and a lot of people would say that's wrong. Like, your number one focus should be your family and your friendships. And in some ways, that maybe that's right. But in your business and with your relationship with your work, it needs to be your focus. You can't even let your wife talk you out of doing work or make you feel bad about doing work, because in order for you to be the best person for her, you need to be focused on your purpose and be fulfilling your purpose, so you can be a good provider. Ultimately, everybody's happy if you're more focused on the bigger picture thing that everybody benefits from, right? So it's almost like, if I were to drop my work and not be as focused on work and try to focus on them and just be overly focused on my family, we would actually start to be less in alignment as a family, because I'm not paying attention to my work, if you guys get what I'm saying. It's kind of the same with treating your business with the respect that it's due as a business. Okay, guys? All right, guys, hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully it makes a lot of sense to me. It should make a lot of sense to you. It's pretty clear, and these basic foundational principles of business, that it's all about leverage. That's what we're trying to create here, and that's my goal with BLG, is give gym owners leverage and give you guys these resources, because I'm a gym owner, but I was also fortunate enough to get into things like real estate and run big businesses prior to this, and I learned a lot of things about leverage that I took into growing my first gym and my second gym, and they allowed me to run really successful gyms that paid me pretty well and paid a lot of other people pretty well and made a lot of people happy. And that I know is your guys' goal. Like it's, it's a combination of doing something you're good at, doing something the world needs, doing something you love, and doing something that pays you well. So, if this is something you need help with, then reach out to me. Go to biglittlegyms.com. There's a little button in the corner that says join the revolution. If you click that, it'll take you to a survey that takes like 2 minutes to fill out that tells me a little bit about you. And then it will take you to my scheduler where you can pick the time you want, and then we'll meet on a Zoom call. We'll get to know each other. We'll talk more about this stuff, and if it makes sense, we can work together. Okay, guys, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.